Hi, romance readers. I am Liz Donatelli. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance, the #1 romance novel talk show on YouTube. Author Kasha Thompson joins me to discuss her hot contemporary romance, Sight Unseen. And Kasha and I create pitches for new romance reality TV shows in fun segment Totally Pitchin'. Enjoy, and be sure to like and subscribe. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance, Kasha.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. Congratulations on the release of Sight Unseen.
Thank you so much.
The cover is gorgeous, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I was really impressed by the detail in the wedding dress. So I was wondering how involved you were in creating that.
The funny thing is that normally I am really I want to have a hand in everything. I give the designer like, well, here's, some reference photos that you can look at. And for this, I didn't because I'm starting to look, I am not a graphic designer. And I realized I don't want to hamper people's creative style. So I just want them to free flow. And so I let I worked with my artist up on all of my covers so far. And so I just let him do his thing. And he came back with that. And I was blown away because that's probably not what I would have given him. But I was so happy with it. And I think it's so beautiful. And I love the lace detail. It came out really nicely.
In Sight Unseen, your romance protagonists, Evelyn and Quincy, meet for the first time at their own wedding on a reality TV show, Why Not? KNOT, which is brilliant. Why Not is inspired by reality TV show Married at First Sight, thankfully without the melodrama. Tell me about your decision to write Evelyn and Quincy as reality TV cast members seeking love who begin their journey at the altar instead of ending up there at the end.
When the whole concept of Married at First Sight first came out, I remember thinking, this is weird. Sign me up. I want to see how this plays out. And when it first came out, I watched a couple of seasons, maybe 5 seasons. And every season, I was like, I cannot believe that these people are marrying complete strangers. And I found that to be the most interesting part, how they get married. And then you are essentially stuck with a person that you don't know. And you have to get to know them while kind of navigating through marriage and living together and meeting each other's families and kind of weaving, like you're in the real world where you're working and doing regular stuff, but you're on this reality show and trying to make it all work. And I just found that I've always found it super interesting. And so I wanted to try to give my take on that story. And I thought, what better place to start than the beginning when it's the most awkward point in the story.
Oh, yeah. That was a brilliant way to begin because you're putting the reader right there. And it's suspenseful. Truthfully, it is. I mean, I figured they had to, get married because, there was
a lot of pages in the book. So they got married.
Right. But it was such a hook. I was like, oh, and I felt throughout as if I was reading a much better version of the reality show. Because I've watched Married at First Sight, not every season, but I've watched enough to be very familiar with the show and to know how it goes. I was like, oh, this is way better than watching the show. This is way more grounded.
Yeah, and some of those matchups on that show are you're just like, how did they do that? Like, why would you put these people together? And it's cringe. It's a little cringe sometimes watching it.
It's very cringe. You should actually be one of the casting directors or a reality show, because I think you would be able to probably put together a better couple than they do. Although you did create Evelyn and Quincy out of your imagination, so that helped. But I think you could still do the job. I would hire you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Could you tell me a little bit about the challenges that Evelyn and Quincy face during their romance journey?
Yeah, I think that they both came into the marriage in different spaces, different headspaces. Evelyn is very out there and fun loving and bold, and she is the woman who jumps off of bridges. She doesn't think, she just leaps. And Quincy is more reserved. He is the guy who doesn't take chances. He's not spontaneous. He only auditioned for the show because a friend was going and said, "Hey, come on, it'll be
Mhm.
fun." And he was like, "Okay, I have nothing better to do." He didn't expect to get chosen. And so they have different personalities. But once they're married and they start to kind of interact with each other, you kind of notice that they do have a similar sense of humor.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Even though their temperaments are different, they're kind of the same as well. Like
Mhm.
they both like to have fun. Evelyn a little bit more than Quincy does because we see them go to parties and Quincy's kind of like in the corner. Um,
Mhm.
um, but I think that you just get to see their personalities as they go through, all the different phases. So the moving in with one another and the
Mhm.
decision on, are we going to move to Evelyn's place or Quincy's place?
Yep.
And, Evelyn is more open-minded and Quincy is like, he has he's very decide, he has he's already decided
Yeah.
where they need to live,
Yep.
and how they navigate that and kind of overcome that. And it's interesting because, you meet somebody and then you start getting to know them. And then when conflicts arise, you don't know this person. So you don't know what to say to kind of talk it through. You don't know what their conflict resolution style is. You don't know how they like to
Mhm.
communicate. And so they're both just, kind of throwing stuff at the wall, hoping that it resonates with the other person.
Right.
And that's kind of like the core of a lot of their uh issues is they're constantly having to learn each other and about each other as different things happen.
Were you tempted to add infighting between the couples and any type, because you do mention the other couples on the show? You touched on them lightly. The antagonists that are mentioned are outside of the show. So I was wondering, though, if you were tempted to keep all of the external conflict within the show. And then you're like, you know what? I'm just going to make it people in their lives are kind of the issue. So tell me about that.
um I always like characters that have full lives. So you're coming into the book with all this baggage
Mhm.
behind you. So
Yeah.
like Evelyn has that stuff with her relationship with her mom and all of that stuff, which causes a conflict. And Quincy, he grew up in foster care, and there's a whole bunch of issues surrounding that.
Right.
I find it more interesting to have the
Mm.
conflict kind of tag along behind them. It's something that they've already had and it's kind of baked into the sauce,
Yeah.
to watch them kind of navigate and grow as people,
Right.
as they grow in love. There was a time when I first started thinking about this story that I was going to have the three couples
Hmm.
and I was going to have them even maybe go on, like a little mini vacation and they'd all be
Right.
together and it would be
Yeah.
drama and just, I had all this stuff planned out. And I thought, well, maybe we could do that. And I thought, you know what? It's really just about Evelyn and
Mhm.
Quincy. So let's just bring it back in. So that's what I chose to do.
Yeah. That was a really wise decision, because if you would have done it the other way, where all the external, like if there was jealousy between the couple, it would have turned into a circus akin to what we see on television, which gets to be too much, and it would
Right.
take away from the richness of the characters, because, like you said, bringing those external conflicts from their own lives adds that richness to their journey, where they've been, where they're going. So I that was the right decision. So I just want to well done. There is a lot of wisdom interspersed throughout. I don't know if you knew that you were wise, but you
Mm.
are. Um, so There's a few things. There's one, I highlighted a bunch of things, and I could keep you here all day with that. But I picked a few. So Evelyn is explaining why she was okay marrying a stranger. I believe this is earlier on in the book. And this is a quote from Evelyn. Love was complex, and even when you knew someone for years, you were still learning new facts about them with growth and evolution. That's why love, sight unseen, wasn't a difficult sell for me. So you mentioned where you started as a fan being like, this is crazy, married at first sight, and it sounds based on what Evelyn said that you kind of came around to kind of like, did you come to a new understanding of where those people are through writing Evelyn? Because Evelyn sounds like, yeah, that's a really valid point for going on a show like that. So do you feel like you yourself have gone through kind of a character arc, a personal arc with how you started thinking about people in that situation? And now you're like, wait, now that I've seen it through Evelyn's eyes, I feel differently.
In a way, let me first say that I would never do that. I am not adventurous. I would never do that. But I knew that people tend to, we're seeking something. We're seeking love. We're seeking companionship. We're looking for that missing piece and all of that. And so people who go on this show are just not, for the most part, I mean, especially initially, we're really with their hearts open, hoping that they'd find their mate. And I think that is very much who Evelyn is. She has, been out there, she's dated, but she's never found, what she's looking for. Yeah. And she feels that, it doesn't matter how love comes to you, as long as it's successful and you get to the end point of falling and staying in love. That was very much her point of view. And I wanted to have that contrast because Quincy is very much my personality with, this is overwhelming. Why are these cameras here? I mean, I knew they were going to be here, but now that they're here, I don't like this. And like Quincy had, trouble actually being his authentic self at some point. And Evelyn was very much like, let's pretend like they're not here. I don't care that the cameras are here. Yeah. All I care about is you.
Yeah, you did a really good job of reminding us, hey, they're still on a show. Because you would periodically mention the cameras like, oh, that's right. That's right. So that you did a really good job. Here's another quote. This is one of the sexy quotes that I was like, what a beautiful turn of phrase in a very sexy, sexy way. I even read it to my husband. I was like, check out this line. The sound of Quincy unbuckling his belt was like a dinner bell calling me home. Let's just sit with that.
Yeah.
When you write a line like that, do you say, wow, I'm good. I've really impressed myself. Like, it's just, there's so much in that. There's so much in that statement.
Yeah, I want to get the reader to feel that they're really into each other. And I wanted you to sense from kind of really early on that they were instantly attracted to each other, even though they didn't know each other. And Evelyn was definitely into Quincy. And so, yeah, sometimes as a writer, when you kind of go back and read your stuff, I'll admit, I'll read something and be like, you wrote that?
That's awesome. Yeah, when I read that, I was like, ooh, well done. So I've noticed that reality TV shows have been playing more of a role in romance novels. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing as well. And not necessarily that they meet their partner on the romance reality show. Baking reality shows, all sorts of different reality shows come to play at some point. Can we officially say that is now a trope? Is the reality show, like reality show romance? I don't know. What would we call that trope?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is. I think that, that reality-based reality television show, contest show type of thing. I think that is a new trope.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of books. You have, like you said, baking. We have like dance competitions. We have
Yes.
several wedding or meeting your mate type of things.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I just think that it's always an interesting dynamic when you kind of add a camera. You add the fact that an audience will eventually be watching. Um, it just
Yeah.
kind of turns everything on its head and makes it a little bit more interesting, you know?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm digging it. I am a fan of specifically the romance reality TV shows. Obviously, you're a fan because everything you wrote, like I was like, yep, that's all accounted for. Having a decision day and just like everything. I was like, yeah, I said Kasha is a big fan. So what do you watch besides Married at First Sight? Do you do Love is Blind? What other shows do you watch?
I don't. I don't. The
What?
funny thing is, I've watched Married at Sight years ago. And then I
Okay.
just kind of stopped because I was frustrated because nobody was staying together. I'd be rooting for these couples and they're talking about we're divorcing. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I am done with you people.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually don't watch a lot of reality television right
Ah.
now. Um, I watch a lot of horror.
I wanted to mention that. I did read that on your website. Go ahead.
I love horror movies. I have loved horror movies since I was like 5 years old.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, me and my sister have watched horror movies forever, and there is not a weekend that goes by where I'm not like, I just want to watch a good horror movie. I'm always looking for something scary. So that's primarily what I watch.
Well, I have to say that I'm a huge horror fan as well. I actually have the streaming service Shudder because I like to watch horror documentaries about making the movies, everything horror. When I want to relax and calm down, my go-to is to watch a horror movie, which, my husband will pass by and hear people screaming and running for their lives. He's
Yeah.
like, I don't get it. Like everything, your brand is romance, but you're watching horror films. So I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile the two? Is that we enjoy watching horror, but we read and, we're immersed in the romance world. So a lot of people say, what's that about? I mean, we could go deep on this probably.
Yeah, but I mean, we are multifaceted people. So,
That's
we
true.
can, get into all kinds of things. And the funny thing is I don't necessarily like to read horror.
Right.
Horror novels are not something I seek out. And
Right.
I always say to myself, why don't I read more horror books? Because I live and breathe horror. Um, but I just think that, horror has its place and it satisfies something in my brain, that
Mhm.
whole being scared or yelling at the television when people make really bad
Mhm.
choices, or seeing, I've been watching it for so long, so
Yeah.
seeing new and creative ideas come out and you're just like, oh my god, this is mind blowing. I've never like I
Yeah.
love that.
Mm-hmm.
um and then you have, romance, because sometimes you want to be, just soft and cuddled and see somebody fall in love,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of imagine that it could be you.
Right, right. Now, this leads me to my next question. There is a mention of Quincy being a Virgo. So I'm wondering, are you a Virgo?
I am a Virgo.
I'm a
Yeah.
Virgo too.
Are you?
I am. Now, are you an August Virgo or a September Virgo?
September Virgo.
Interesting. I am August, and most people I speak to are September Virgos, which is interesting. I'm August 28th. Uh,
I'm September 16th.
oh, so you're almost at the end of Virgo.
Hmm.
Oh, so maybe there's something about Virgo having this dual nature of horror and romance, which I would say it like two extremes.
Yeah, they really are. It could be. Yeah.
Interesting. And we're both from New York City. All right. There's something here. There's something
Yeah,
here.
I think so.
Absolutely. There are supporting characters in Sight Unseen that I really enjoyed getting to know, Walt and Merrill. and it seems like they might have some kind of romance brewing. I was wondering if they will get their own book.
Maybe. Like the thought has come to me, like I realize, okay, you're obviously teeing this up for something.
Yeah.
And I did a little kind of rough outline for them, but I haven't written anything. And so part of me is like, do we do it or do we just move on to something else? Because I didn't intend for Sight Unseen to have, another book attached to it. It was like supposed to be a one and done.
Oh,
And
okay.
so then, Walt and Meryl were doing all that stuff they were doing. And I was like, well, maybe this could be something. And I actually have a really cute little story outline for them. I think it's really, really good.
Well,
Um,
I would read it.
yeah, well, I guess I should get to writing.
I guess you could. Well, I mean, if you didn't want to, commit to a full length novel, maybe you could do a novella or,
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I
Mhm.
was, not to give too much away, but it
Yeah,
was going to kind of track the whole Evelyn and Quincy relationship because that's where they meet. And
right.
then there would be things that were happening, like things that would happen like at the Halloween party. You get a different perspective because you'd see Walt and Meryl and the things that were going on with them that had nothing to do
Yeah,
with Evelyn and Quincy, and,
right.
and other different events
Okay.
that kind of fleshed out that story.
Gotcha. I'm
Yeah.
surprised to hear that because I could pick out a handful of people that we met that I'd be interested in reading their story. Victoria, Quincy's ex, I thought it'd be interesting to see her either be a contestant on the show and find her partner. I also thought that maybe Erica, Evelyn's sister, I was like, maybe then I was like, maybe Evan, but then Evan, I think, is with someone, correct? Her twin brother.
It's with someone, but it's not very
Okay.
so.
So I was like, oh, this could be a long running series, which would bring joy to my life, but, it's not up to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought about something for Evan too. I'm thinking maybe Evan and Dottie could do something. I don't know how they would get together. Um,
Oh,
or we just maybe introduce somebody completely new into the mix.
interesting.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I have thought about it. Um,
Okay.
so who knows?
Okay. I'm glad you're thinking of it though. I'm glad it's on your mind. Okay. So what are you then currently working on, if you can say definitively?
So the next book that I'm going to release, it's
Mhm.
currently in the editing phase.
Okay.
It's a basketball, romance. And it's book one in a series. So this will be like my actual first series. So I've only done standalones up to
Right.
this date. It's about a basketball player and a cocktail waitress.
Ooh.
And they meet in anger management.
I need to know why the cocktail waitress ends up in anger management. That's a good story. That's got it.
It's
Oh,
going to
wait.
be a really good story.
I
Yeah.
wonder if it's with the two of them both get. Oh, okay.
Now
All
he
right.
has his own reason for why he's in, and she
Oh,
has her own very separate reason
oh,
for why
separate.
she's in. And they're
Okay.
both crazy.
Well, now that sounds intriguing and interesting that you chose this story to be first in a series. What is the series called? Are you able to mention? Do you
It's
know?
called, I mean, I guess it's called Las Vegas Ramblers because it takes
Okay.
place in Las Vegas. The name of the basketball team is the Ramblers.
Gotcha.
And it's going to be, the Las Vegas Ramblers series.
Mm,
And you'll see different players from the team, the coach, you know,
I like
management.
it.
So, um, yeah,
I look forward to it coming out. And is that releasing in 2024 or later in 2023?
it's releasing in 2023.
Oh,
So yeah,
exciting.
we're thinking of where there's nowhere it's me. I'm thinking July. Um,
July.
yeah, but
Okay.
want to make sure everything, because I like to wait until everything's done and then say this is the date. But
I don't blame you. I don't blame. Well,
yeah.
I eagerly await the release because it sounds intriguing. I mean, you already got me hooked. And I already know that I enjoy your writing style and you're a great storyteller and you write some steamy scenes. You write some very steamy scenes.
I'm trying.
Well, well,
Trying to
you
get
don't have
this
to
to
try.
a
You're doing
week.
it. Yeah, there was so that's a good question. I haven't asked this of an author in a while. Um Preparing to write sex scenes, how do you get into the headspace?
When I write, a lot of times when I get to that sex scene, I'll type in add sex because I am not in the mood to do the whole, what are they doing and whose arms are where and what we're all doing.
Yeah.
Um, you put on a little music. Um, you want to get into the character's head, especially if it's the first time. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the big scene. And you want to make sure, you've got the good balance of the spicy, what bits, but then you're also pulling out what's, going on with them as far as their emotions and their
Yeah.
thoughts and how is this progressing their relationship.
Right.
um yeah, it's a lot of me sitting there staring at my computer. And it's funny because I was talking to myself the other day, because I talk to myself a lot. I realized that when I write my sex scenes, and this may be a whole lot of TMI, I'm doing a lot of like this. I'm like, okay, they're having sex,
Yeah.
I'm moving my hips, I'm like, okay, now what are we doing? Just to kind of get my head into it.
That makes sense to me. I always envision authors actually doing movements and things and, staging the whole scene. Like that's how I envision authors writing it. So to me, that makes sense. You have to feel it. You
You
have to
gotta
feel it.
feel
You
it.
have to
Yeah,
be
you
like
gotta. Yeah,
space around you, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And sometimes I'll go into that incognito search on Google to see, okay, what does this position actually look like?
yeah.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah,
people are like, hey, wait, that hand was over there. How did you
that
end up
doesn't
doing
make
that?
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Kasha, now it is time for Totally Pitchin'. And this is when we get a chance to build a pitch for a television show or movie. But today, we are going to each come up with a pitch for a romance reality TV show. What are your thoughts on the premise? Is this going to be dating? Is this going to be we're going to have to get married? What to you, what would you like to see out there? What would you like to bring to
I
pitch?
think I would like dating.
Okay.
So, at the, you're dating, figuring things out. Yeah, that.
Okay, so a dating reality show. So what are your thoughts on how's the couple going to meet? Is this going to be, a surprise thing? Is a casting director going to set them up? Like what are you thinking about like how are we bringing these couples together to date?
Okay. So I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna do big.
Go crazy.
Okay, so it's gonna be a dating show for chefs, and they're gonna have to taste each other's food to see who they connect with. So if you like the person's food, then you're like, hey, I want to get to know that person. And hopefully, if that person likes your food, then you have a mutual connection, and then we go from there.
All right, first of all, I love it and I want to pitch it immediately to somebody. Interesting you say that because one of the things that attracted my husband to me was my homemade pasta sauce. Yeah. I mean, I like to think it was like maybe number five of the reasons why he was attracted to me. But so I think that the whole food and romance love thing, this show has legs.
Yeah,
This show
I
has
mean,
legs.
good food brings people together, and the way to a man's stomach is through way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and
Yeah.
that whole thing.
Oh,
But food is love, and cooking for your family or cooking for people that you care about, your friends, and enjoying a meal together.
yeah.
That's great.
Well, I think that's brilliant. What are your thoughts on where it would be set? Like what city or, what state? What are you thinking about where that's going to take place? Or would it travel? Maybe it would travel.
I mean, we could travel because there's a lot of food meccas that it could take
Yes.
place in, or a lot of reality shows have you completely isolated, so you're on an island somewhere and they just have this huge, massive kitchen.
Yeah.
So you could be on an island,
Okay.
because you want to kind of eliminate
Okay.
outside interference.
Okay. An island. Okay. Now, what are your thoughts on a title?
The titles are always the hardest to come up
I
with.
know.
It could be like maybe it could be Chef's Kiss or
It could
something like
be
that. Yeah,
Chef's
yeah,
Kiss would work. Yeah.
Chef's Kiss. Yeah,
Chef's Kiss, I think, is a good working title. And once you
yes.
pitch it, the producers might want to
We'll workshop it. We'll workshop it, and we can come up with a
definitely,
couple. Yeah, exactly.
definitely. Now, one of the most important questions is who are you taking this to? Is this going to be a network show? Is this going to be a streaming service? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is a streaming service.
Okay.
I really think it is. And then, people can, binge it maybe. And I know a lot of streaming services are now going back to that kind of one episode type of thing, which
Yeah.
is actually very good because it, stirs up the conversation.
Yes.
And there could be a whole bunch of merch associated with it because you're having food. We could do recipe books. We
Oh,
could have
yeah.
aprons. Like, listen, this
Oh,
could be
yeah.
big time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Who would host the show? Who would be like the MC? Who would be the voice of Chef's Kiss?
Ooh. Okay, I don't know. I think the host could be um Padma, maybe from because she's
Oh,
strikingly beautiful.
yeah.
She loves food from Top Chef. She would be
Yeah.
very nice. She could be, the host that kind of guides people through the different competitions or,
Yeah.
lets us know where we're at in the story. I think she could be a good fit.
I really love your ideas. I would go with you to pitch this show for sure. This is my idea.
Okay.
It's called Ding Dong, You're Getting Married.
Oh my goodness. I
Okay.
already love it. I already
Yeah.
feel like I know what's going to happen and I'm in love. Go, go.
Okay. So family members select someone for their single person in their life to marry. And what they do is they just kind of ring the doorbell, be like, hey, you're getting married to this person. They have a surprise wedding right there, wherever they are in this person's house. And now here's the thing, and I didn't ask you, and we could talk about that. Is there a certain amount of time? Now, for mine, I would say probably the 3 months is good. See if they
Yeah.
want to stay married after 3 months. That seems to be the usual. Now, yours is dating. Would the couple have to date for a certain amount of time, or is that when it ends? It just ends when they are coupled together. It's like, oh, we found our match, and that's the end of the show.
I think with mine,
Mhm.
because it's about connecting, matching with the food, you could
Yeah.
have several matches
Mm,
potentially.
right.
So
So
then
this
you
could
could
take a
so
while.
let's say you get three matches, you could date three matches. We could see, which one,
Ah,
you eliminate a couple
yeah.
or whatever,
Okay.
until you get down to that one match.
Okay. I
Yeah.
like that. Okay, good.
Yeah, and yours is definitely going to need a time frame because they're going to have to get to know each other because
Yeah.
it's a cold marriage, and
Yeah.
so they're going to have to start, building a life.
Yes, yeah. And to add, it would be friends and family, which getting together to so there also is
That
going to be
makes
kind of
sense.
a few episodes before we even meet the person and they get married. It's going to be the family and friends kind of maybe duking it out like we like this guy or we like this girl. And so there's going to be like some drama a little bit before you even get to meet the person that is going to have this surprise wedding. But
I like that because a lot of people, who you are with your family and who you are with your friends can be very different.
yes.
So
Yes.
your parents and your sister or whatever think they know
Hmm.
what kind of person you should be married to, but your friends see who you're actually really
Yes.
dating and approaching in the clubs or at the
Yeah.
bar.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I like
Oh
it.
yeah. So that's Ding Dong, You're Getting Married.
Those doorbell rings would be
Yes.
that would be what would
Okay.
have everybody on the edge of their chair when that person answers the door and is like, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
What's going on? And they're like,
Yeah.
you're about to get married, buddy.
Now, this is who I'd do as the host. I think the two of us should host. I think we
Oh,
should
I like
host
that.
the show.
Because I'm gonna ask all the nosy questions.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
their body language isn't where it needs to be, I'm gonna be like, look, it seems like you're not happy with this marriage. What's
Right.
going on?
Right. Yeah.
Because
And
yeah, you gotta make
so
it juicy and interesting.
Definitely. I think you could bring the juice based on reading Sight Unseen. I know you could bring the juice. You bring the juice, and I'm just going to just pop out every now and again and just say, so tell me what's going on here. Talk me through what's going on. But I'll just pop up at weird places, like, like behind, I just like in the morning, they're having breakfast. I just walk and say, hey, so what's going on? What's the feeling today? I just like
Yeah,
surprise them.
we could be the Rizzoli and Isles or the Cagney and Lacey of that franchise.
I love
We could do it.
I love that you mentioned Cagney and Lacey because I think we might be from the same generation based
I
on
think
your
so
mentioning that.
because
Um,
that's an old reference. So some people can be like Cagney and
yeah,
Lacey.
yes, I know Cagney and Lacey. I think we both have some solid ideas. We have to make this happen.
And I think we can. And I think we have two solid ideas.
Yep.
And next thing you know, we're doing interviews, we're racking in the dough, and you know,
Yeah, I know. I mean, I can see it.
yeah, clear as day.
Well, Kasha, you are a delight. Thank you for taking time to join me here on Reader Seeks Romance.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.